To remain updated with the latest business news, click on the bell icon.
Well, much has been spoken about through the day today on the technology and how it's going to be shaping the future. But the fact is that we also need a lot of people with the right skill sets in order to drive that technology. And that's what we want to talk about in this session. Jagdish, let me start off with you. In terms of the ecosystem, in terms of the funnel, when it comes to qualified individuals, perhaps the newer generation, are we tapping into universities, tier 2 towns? Where are we seeing the skills really being driven from?
Well, I think, long back when value-added services got launched, there was ABC, which was astrology, Bollywood, and cricket. Now in technology, there's ABCD, which is artificial intelligence, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and then digital twins. So all of these things will become absolutely critical part of any economic growth. And today, just to give you statistics, out of the 2 million odd jobs that we have, or 2 million odd IT skilled professionals that we have in this country, only 5,000 are blockchain. And this is only going to grow at an exponential pace.
Out of
So we
2
have a
million,
huge-
only 5,000.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a startling statistic.
So in order to be able to make sure that we are ready to be able to, I don't think there's one size fits all type of an answer. There is an ecosystem change that we need to look at, which is organizations like us. Because see, there is nothing that is outside that you can dip into the pool, and there is no existing pool that you can pull people out. That pool itself is limited. So you have to grow that pool. You do it with the help of academia. You do the help of building your own talent pool and training them both ways, not just for tech companies like us, but for business organizations where some of us are partnering with them and training their people to be ready for what the blockchain can deliver. So we call them functional experts, and we call our people in the IT side as technical experts. So that's how you build the complete ecosystem around it.
Okay, let me get Ajeet in on this as well. And Ajeet, I know that you are very much in sync with talking about academia, some of the the next generation of youngsters that are looking to get into this space. What do you feel are the available options for them when it comes to skilling, when it comes to learning and joining the entire ecosystem?
So very quickly, number one is that unlike the IT services revolution, which took place in the late 80s or more so the early 90s, one big difference in the blockchain/crypto paradigm is that there are a lot of non-tech jobs. If you look at crypto companies today and you look at their workforce, I think somewhere between 5 to 30% of their workforce is in tech. By tech, I mean engineering as well as product, and 70 to 95% are outside it. So that is one huge difference between the value-added services or the IT services revolution that we saw. There are two enablers to this, I would say. One would be at the government platform regulator level. I used to be the CEO of what was at that time India's largest crypto exchange. And my employees used to ask me that, my parents are very worried that I work in cryptocurrency. They think I might go to jail. And I'm like, you are a programmer, as in, or you're an accountant, or so that is one. I think there has to be some clearing of the air. I hope that sessions such as the Business Today Crypto Conclave is helping that. And the second thing is about the enabling provisions. And in this, I feel the mainstream academia, coincidentally, in an earlier life, I used to be a lecturer at the University of Texas at Austin. The mainstream academia, of course, has a role to play, but usually it is late to the party, sometimes by as much as 5 to 10 years. We hope it will be sooner this time, but there have to be supplemental mechanisms. And the good news is that today, crypto companies, blockchain companies are fine taking people who may have some basic academic qualifications and have done online programs, because frankly, that is all that is available.
All right. So much talk about academia. So Rajkumar, let me come to you next and understand better, where we're headed in terms of providing modules and providing ways and means in order to enrich some of those that are looking to get into this space.
Aabha, there's a fundamental disconnect between the demand that's actually happening and the supply that's out there. And Jagdish was actually alluding to it. Given the pace at which blockchain is growing, I mean, Gartner mentioned that by 2025, the total industry size would be 176 billion. And in another 5 years, it's likely to touch 3 trillion. So you're talking of exponential movements where you compare that with the supply side. You have a huge issue because only about 1 out of 400 odd software developers have advanced knowledge of blockchain, which essentially puts a lot of pressure, and there is probably 2 out of 400 who have some rudimentary knowledge. So the gap between what you need and what is out there is really, really small. So I think what is required is a much wider virtuous cycle that you build in, not just in terms of one facet or one dimension, but to be able to actually create a cohort of people who can support this entire exercise.
Okay, let's get your view in as well, Mr. Rajan, and understand from you how you see that happening. What are the enablers? What are the challenges?
I think I've been hearing since so many sessions before this, and this is absolutely right. The demand is not as much as we are today expecting for the blockchain experts. However, what I find is there is a big demand for cross-skilling and upskilling of the existing resources in the industries. And that industry is today addressing at their own level. They don't want very specific blockchain experts. They are picking some specific standards, occupational standards, where their existing employees are getting trained. So that there the demand is. But as far as the universities and academia is concerned, I think biggest challenge today is not about teaching blockchain because it requires a lot of practice. The biggest challenge is how the faculty goes out and meets the industry and understands which sectoral projects they have and where students can actually work. See, you don't have a workshop where a student can go and work on a machine and make a product. It's something a student has to learn and work on a project. So the challenge is how faculties go and meet industry, get the industry requirements, work on certain assignments, and help the students to upskill themselves. So this is one thing. So I can stop here.
No, I want all of you to continue. But let me get Ajeet in as well. Do you think that we need to look at this differently, Ajeet? You pointed out the difference earlier between the traditional IT services companies and the last time we've seen this whole phase of development. Do you think, as we've just heard, that perhaps we need to approach this whole entire problem a little differently this time?
There is one big similarity and one big dissimilarity. The similarity comes, which I can personally narrate because I am from the 1991 batch of computer engineering, which was the 4th batch in India, which actually offered a computer engineering degree as opposed to a computer subject under electrical engineering. So none of our teachers were computer engineers, right? So today we are facing the same situation as the gentleman talked about earlier, that the teachers cannot possibly in large numbers be good faculty members because they did not have any work experience in this. But I think the big dissimilarity, like the first speaker talked about 5,000 out of 2 million, the second speaker talked about 2 out of 400. I fear that these numbers are still dealing with only the technical / engineering / coding dimension of the blockchain industry. And there is a whole lot more which may actually be much bigger. So I think that probably if we look at the other aspects, my slogan has always been what brand used to be to traditional companies, community is to the crypto industry. So if we understand that, then there's a room for everybody, not just the technical people, and that is the big difference.
Mr. Rajkumar, what do you think?
Well, I think, first of all, both the points, I think we tried to highlight it to saying that there are 2 aspects of every business. Even when we started doing ERP classically, there was a technology part and there was a functional part, someone who understands the business process. So you will need that for blockchain also. But I think the biggest opportunity for us is to realize, like I think he was speaking about, that you won't be able to teach them only in an isolated classroom. And the opportunity here is tremendous because the very fundamental of blockchain is based around trust. So what we are trying to do is to make sure that you get transparency and you get trust. That are the 2 principles around which blockchain is built. So look at the government use case. I don't know how many of people know that today TRAI's database and work solutions, some of it we and Tech Mahindra have been involved in, is the largest blockchain database in this part of the world in Asia. Now, those are some of the applications that we will do with companies and with government. And the more academic institutions and organizations start to build those use cases, they'll build skills. There is no, like to his point, who the hell is going to teach us? The people don't know enough about it. So there are only a few of those 5,000-10,000 people who know about it. So you've got to make sure that you're doing those proof of concepts, you're engaging with clients, and you're driving programs with the government to do this. And maybe there's a policy change that you need to bring in where the government then encourages people to come and propose blockchain-based solutions in, say, land authority or in terms of something to do with tax. Because at the end of it, this helps you solve citizen problems and business problems.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned that, and I want to dive into that just a little bit more, Jagdish, because at Tech Mahindra, I know that you are using some of these solutions. Just to give our audience here a little bit of context as to what perhaps we need this enormous skill set for, because at the moment, when we talk about crypto and we talk about blockchain, it's seen at a very individual level. But give us a little bit of an overview, if we step back for a moment, as to why we need this driving force.
Sure. So see, at the end of it, every technology is as valuable as the business application it creates. For example, we all today, probably half of us who came here, used Google Maps. But you don't learn Google Maps. You learn the technology that goes behind creating a Google Map, which is some amount of it is natural language processing, could be machine learning, could be some parts of AI and data science. Similarly, blockchain uses and gives you a multiple sets of use cases. I give you an example of one of the biggest challenges in this country is land records, right? How do you solve those land record problems at state level? Anything that requires trust and security to be associated, there are thousands and thousands of use cases, whether it's in the finance, whether it's revenue, whether it's commerce, whether it's trade and export, whether it is tracking a product movement in a supply chain, all of it can be termed through to a blockchain. And those are use cases that will make sure that skills are in demand.
So, Mr. Rajkumar and Dr. Rajan, let me get both of you in on this, because is this a problem that we're not addressing, in the sense if we don't create a pipeline, and whether it's all stakeholders, whether it's academia, industry, government that needs to get involved, and we're already talking about skilling across so many other industries, but the way we're seeing growth in this entire area is so rapid. If we don't really speed up in terms of how we're able to match the kind of requirement, will we stall the kind of growth that we can possibly have?
Let me just go back a step. When you're talking about skilling as a concept, typically you're talking about vocational skilling. That's how we normally understand. And when you're talking about blockchain, there are 4 distinct layers which are equally complex. And we typically look at it as IT skills being developed. But essentially what you're talking of is that the first layer in blockchain is technical skills. So if you're talking about coding, you're talking about design, you're talking about engineering. So all of these are core technical skills built on an existing foundation of somebody who knows how to develop software and languages and all of that. So you already have a very strong foundation layer that is necessary, on top of which you do a top-up, and that's technical skills. The second one, and which is equally critical, is the fact that there are interdependencies and adjacencies around functional connects. So it's not just IT in isolation. You are supposed to understand the rest of the functions together. At the third level, it's more what we were referring to earlier in terms of in which sector are you applying. So you need to have sectoral knowledge, and so that the application and the knowledge that you have, they tie in. And fourth, which again is not really looked at, is behavioral skills. So you need skills such as being able to collaborate with each other, skills in terms of emotional intelligence, where there is a user interface that you need to understand from within. It's not just that I develop something which is nice and sexy, but unless it's actually applied and somebody understands from a user point of view, you're going to fall short. So when you're looking at the world of competencies in skilling, it's a combination of these. So you need technical, you need functional, you need sectoral skills, and you need behavioral ones. And which is what makes the entire dynamic that much more complex and difficult.
And if you were to somehow try and break this up, I mean, if we have 5,000, we're talking about the tech side. But if we talk about all these other functions, is it a bigger universe? Or is that also something that needs to build?
No, you're talking about 1 out of 400, right? Which currently exists. And most of the focus I see is primarily on being able to create a top-up layer on an existing foundation of somebody who knows Python, Java, JavaScript, and has been developing. You're talking about blockchain as a concept coming on top. But I'm saying the more you have to look at the wider use of blockchain across multiple sectors. It could be healthcare, like you were mentioning, the government. Unless you're able to get that sense clearly.
So it's working with different partners.
You need to do that.
All right. Dr. Rajan, what do you think?
I think another aspect is it's very important today to understand every engineer cannot become a blockchain expert. you have to make sure that when you are identifying students who have to get into learning of blockchain, they have that profile appetite for learning that, and then select them for such programs. The another area is institutions, especially the academia or the universities, they also have to very carefully design the syllabus, curriculum, and then the courseware. Today, the problem is that you bring in the students, give them a blockchain module to read, and you think they have become the blockchain experts, which is not the truth. The fourth, which I initially also said, that every industry has a different challenge when it comes to blockchain, solving the problems through blockchain. So they require a different set of project activities. They require a different set of solutioning. Now, that is where the institutions have to come in and work and understand those needs and bake them into the course module so that students are able to solve and crack those problems. And when they appear in front of the institutions, they're able to crack that. And last is, academia and industry has to build a rapport with each other to find out where they can work together. You see, in the outside India, most of the innovations happen inside the campuses. And this is where India has a phenomenal opportunity, because we are a developing nation and there are so many problems that we have in the country, and the blockchain has a potential to solve that, and institutions can actually make it a bridge.
Do you see that buzz, in terms of the kind of campuses that you may interact with or relate to? Do you feel that buzz? Do you see that it's happening?
See, there is an awareness issue also. People today think Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is blockchain,
Right.
which is not the truth. I tell you, I have seen many students who are not Bitcoin, blockchain experts, but they have become cryptocurrency experts. They are now advocating where and how you should be investing. I was hearing a question before that. Most of the information is today available on the apps that you are using. So there are huge conversations happening, but I think awareness is one area that still requires to be pushed. A lot of clarifications within industry, in the academia, within the faculty, within the students requires. And how careers can grow in next couple of years, that clarity is also not with many people. So they're very reluctant sometimes.
That was going to be my next question as well. That do you feel that people are hesitant to get into this space? I think one of you started with that, saying that students are worried they'll go to jail if they're working in crypto. But do you see that changing?
Well, I think yes, as we mentioned here as well, it will only change with more and more awareness being raised. And talking, I think the previous panel talked about it also. We have to talk about technology in its usage and application, not in terms of whether it's positive or negative. No technology comes with a thought process saying this will corrupt the way we do business or work and so forth. So the narrative across us when we talk about things like new technologies, they go through a hype curve. And at the end of the hype curve, there will be a lot of applications that one can use. And what we need to talk about, what applications are they getting used at? Crypto is only a mechanism, NFT is only a mechanism to leverage blockchain as a technology. But the applications become different as you do to different industries. The way to look at it is, just to give you some statistics again, and I think statistics sometimes are the biggest drivers to give us some idea. By 2030, there's supposed to have 10 million requirement of just blockchain jobs, which is not too far. So that's the humongous amount of global requirement, because almost every IoT device, every sensor, at the end of it will get connected to blockchain, because as we said, at the core of it is trust and transparency. That's what blockchain offers.
So, Aabha, actually, I would look at it as 4 distinct layers that require attention. At the first, so if I have to look at the entire ecosystem that needs to enable the entire thing, you need to have education to begin with, creation of employability. From there, you have opportunities for employment, and then opportunities for entrepreneurship. And let me very quickly touch on each of them. So when you're talking about education, I think awareness per se. So when we're talking about understanding what is blockchain, and these days, you're absolutely right, Nehru, in terms of saying most people think blockchain equals crypto. And this is a crypto conclave, right? But we're talking about blockchain, is a much wider universe. And I think Neeraj earlier of CoinDCX clarified that we are talking about something which is much, much bigger and probably as big as the internet. So I think it's important for us that this, like internet, is going to change the world. Even in Indian context, 56% of the industry is talking about that it's going to be part of way of life. So that's the first level of awareness. that has to start from your school and college and engineering colleges. The second is actually providing training to create employability, where I start from a certain position and I start understanding blockchain technology, its uses. There you have the government, you have academia, you have edutech companies, you have consulting firms, you have startups. All of them together are our sources of training, and they create employability, but it doesn't stop there. From there, the fact that I'm trained, I understand blockchain, I need to be in a job. So employment is a very critical aspect where I have the opportunity to use that employment to gain experience in application. And that's where I start getting relevant. And it is second dimension of that is, at one end, I might look at being employed. The other is actually being an entrepreneur in the space. And if you look at India, just in terms of startups, we are at less than 2% of the world's startups. You take a place like Zug in Switzerland. They have 450 blockchain associations in a town which is 29,000 population. So you're talking of places like Estonia, which is so small. But if you look at the amount of utilization of blockchain has been so significant. I think we are sitting on a gold mine, and we just have to find a way to leverage it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think as the regulations also start becoming flexible, nimble, and more aligned with what is required, there would be more demand for it. But I see currently there is a huge buzz, the word you used, among the budding entrepreneurs, the students inside the campuses. They are pairing up with some small-time enterprises and trying to understand what they can do in this area. There is a great opportunity for freelancers. I have seen students or these youngsters who are web developers or app developers. They are now cross-skilling themselves with this blockchain technology and trying to find out what kind of opportunities can come as a freelancer, like giggers. They are getting opportunities from outside India to work on some small projects. I see it's coming up, but I think in next couple of maybe months or years, it's going to peak up. And as things become more flexible and clearer, students and institutions will have a great opportunity.
Well, it sounds very exciting, and the way all of you are describing it, I almost don't want to miss out. If I was starting again, I'd want to, want to find out more. Jagdish, closing comments?
Well, I think this is, like they say, if you look at it positively, a tsunami or a wave, it's bound to happen. We decide whether we want to be part of it, you're going to be swept away by it. So you better ride the wave than be swept away by it. And I think roles have to be played by all. We can't just ask the government to do it. Organizations like us, working with academia and the government, taking, and school boards, like we were talking about. Why not our boards start teaching our kids from class 6 or 7 onwards? What does a blockchain mean? What are the applications? What are the use cases that one can apply? You'll create a humongous database of people which India should ride on.
Yeah.
I would probably take recourse to literature. Given the way in which blockchain is developing, and we're just about touching the tip of the iceberg, I'm reminded of William Blake's words from the Auguries of Innocence. He says, to see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. I think that's the power of what we are going to see. And we need to start embracing it slowly.
Fantastic.
The only thing I would say, in the previous sessions we heard that there's a lot of transparency in blockchain. And I feel that transparency is a roadblock to this, to its growth, because many organizations, people are reluctant because of its transparency. But I hope in the coming days, it will wither away slowly.
And that's an ongoing debate, and I'm sure we'll take that forward in some of the sessions post-tea as well. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It was enlightening. So much to learn about, how the entire ecosystem is evolving. We'd like to welcome all of you for high tea, and we'll be back shortly after that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aabha.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.